porch of pillars proper. If the dimensions given apply just to the porch of pillars, then the size of the canopied portion is not given. This building may have served as a grand entranceway to the porch of the throne and as a place where the king conducted the ordinary business of the kingdom and received some visitors. Porch of the throne. Another building that Solomon constructed after the temple was completed was the porch of the throne. 1 Kai 7. 1:7 The porch of judgment referred to in the text seems to be synonymous with the porch of the throne. So the porch of the throne evidently was where Solomon placed his ornate ivory and gold throne and did judging. 1 Kai 10. 18-20. The entire description of this building is: He made the porch of judgment, and they covered it in with cedar wood from the floor to the rafters. 1 Kai 7. 7 The Masoretic text actually says, from floor to floor, leading some to believe that there was cedar from the floor of this building to the floor of the porch of pillars mentioned in the preceding verse. However, the Syriac Peshitta reads from floor to ceiling, and the Latin Vulgate says from floor to top. So, certain translators believe that the cedar was some sort of splendid paneling from the floor of the porch to its rafters or ceiling. In W. R. S. J. B. Although other architectural details are lacking, this would suggest a building not having open pillars on its side or sides, as may have been the case with the house of the forest of Lebanon and the porch of pillars. Since the porch of the throne is listed right after the porch of pillars, it is possible that this latter building served as a grand entrance to the porch of the throne. A person coming from the east may have had to walk through the porcho textoi acute miritra longo, portrait 655 Ezekiel's temple vision. Quite a number of porches are mentioned in the vision Ezekiel had of a temple sanctuary. The temple building itself had a porch in front toward the east, as did Solomon's temple. However, this porch was 20 cubits 10.4 m. 34 feet in length and 11 cubits 5.7 meters, 18.7 feet in width. The height is not stated. These measurements are based on the long cubit of about 51.8 centimeters 20.4 inches. Sears 40. 5, ftn. This porch had pillars as well as side pillars, and there was a wood canopy, probably near the top. As 40. 48, 49. 41. 25, 26 Each of the three elaborate outer gateways approaching from the S, and then incorporated a porch with windows of narrowing frames. Apparently, one ascending the stairs into the gateway passed 3 guard chambers on each side and then, by crossing a threshold, came into the porch before entering the outer courtyard. As 40. 6-17 Each of the 3 inner gateways also had a porch, perhaps just as one ascended the steps and entered the gate. The porch in the gateway approached from the end contained 4 tables for slaughtering the whole burnt offering. As 40. 35-42. Porsus Festus. C. Festus. Porcupine Heb. Kip middle. Pod. A large rodent distinguished by its protective spines or quills. There is considerable dispute as to the exact meaning of the Hebrew word kip middle. Pod, variously rendered bidin kj, da, busted ne, hedgehog at, la, and porcupine s as, nw. Isla 14. 23. 34. 11. Zep 2. 14 In the light of Hebrew etymology, Gr. Driver rejects the rendering bitten and suggests that the Hebrew kip middle. Pod may apply both to the porcupine and to a bird. But he recommends rough busted as a likely translation for kip middle. Pod in the above texts. Palestine Exploration Quarterly, London, 1955, p. 137 Cooler and Baumgartner prefer hedgehog at Isaiah 14. 23. 34. 11, but Shorty Bow at Zephaniah 2. 14. Lexicon in Veteris Testamenti Libros, Leiden, 1958, p. 845 That one Hebrew word may apply to 2 entirely different animals is illustrated by the term tin middle. Shemeth, which denotes both a flying creature, the swan, and a swarming creature, the chameleon. La 11. 18, 30. Despite the uncertainty, however, there is good basis for consistently translating kip middle. Pod as either porcupine or hedgehog, rather than bitten. Both older and modern lexicons generally list hedgehog or porcupine as defining kipod in all cases. These renderings have the support of the Greek Septuagint and the Latin Vulgate, as well as of Hebrew etymology and related languages such as Aramaic, Arabic, and Ethiopic. On the basis of inferences drawn from Isaiah 14:23 and Zephaniah 2:14 regarding the desolation of Babylon and Nineveh, some raise the objection that the porcupine or the hedgehog could not be the animal intended, since this creature does not frequent reedy pools of water, nor can it sing or climb to the top of columns. However, according to Isaiah 14:23, not the reedy pools but Babylon was to become the possession of porcupines. One explorer of Babylon's ruins reported finding quantities of porcupine quills. Similarly, the reference to a voice singing in the window at desolated Nineveh can apply to any bird that might perch in a deserted window, or even to the sound of the wind, and need not apply to the porcupine. Zep 2:14 As to the porcupine spending the night among the pillar capitals, the top portion of the pillars, it must be remembered that the picture drawn is of a city in ruins. Hence, it is certainly possible that the pillars are here regarded as fallen to the ground. Porphyry middle ri. A kind of stone, usually dark red, purple, or sometimes green, containing feldspar crystals. Together with marble and pearl, it was used as pavement in the Persian palace at Shushan in the days of King Ahasuerus. As 1:6. Portent. Something that presages future situations or events. Also, a marvel. Theotextoi acute miritra longo, pot 656 and other uses oath sign to describe the same thing. Compare 2ch 32:24 with 2chi 20:8-9. A sign may serve as a guide or indicator for the present, as well as for the future, whereas a portent relates primarily to the future. The designating of something as a sign stresses that it has significance, whether for the present or the future. Its being called a portent stresses its significance as relating to the future. Thus, when referring to Joel 2:30, which foretold portents plural of the Hebrew Momidal.Feth in the heavens and on the earth, the Apostle Peter spoke of portents plural of the Gr. Duras in heaven above and signs plural of Smidal.Meon on earth. Act 2:14-19 in the Christian Greek scriptures to ras is consistently used in combination with Simeon sign, both terms being used in the plural form. Act 7:36-14, 3:15, 12, 2:12. Basically, Taras refers to any act or thing exciting wonderment, hence it is properly translated wonders in some cases. Mount 24. Joe 4:48 where the future is more clearly involved, portent is more appropriate. Serving as credentials that Jesus was God-sent one were the powerful works and portents and signs that God did through him. Act 2:22 the miraculous cures and resurrections he performed not only excited wonderment, but also portended what he would do on a greater scale in the future. Joe 6:54. Compare Joe 1:50-51. 5:20-28. Some acts were portents of his future activity as God's high priest, forgiving sins and acting as judge. Mount 9:2-8. Joe 5:1-24 others served as evidence of his future authority and power to act against Satan and his demons, abyssing them. Mount 12:22-29. Lu 8:27-33. Compare 21-3. All such acts pointed forward to his messianic rule as anointed king of God's kingdom. Similarly, Jesus' disciples, as witnesses of his teachings and resurrection, were backed up by God with signs as well as portents and various powerful works. Heb 2:3-4. Act 2:43. 5:12 These gave evidence of God's dealings with the newly formed Christian congregation and portended his future use of that congregation to carry out his will and purpose. Compare Job 14:12. As false prophets arose in Israel, so the foretold apostasy in the Christian congregation would produce a man of lawlessness whose presence would be evidenced by the operation of Satan with every powerful work and lying signs and portents. 2th 3-12. Thus, the evidence marshaled to support the apostate movement would not be weak or puny but would manifest Satan's might. Their portents would be lying ones, however, either fraudulent on their face or deceptive as to the conclusions to which they would lead. Appearing to manifest God's benevolence and blessing, they would in reality divert persons from the source and path of life. Compare to Co 11. 3:12-15. See miracles. Power, powerful works. Sign. Pot. See cooking, cooking utensils. Potapar Poto middle. Far from Egyptian, a shortened form of Potapera. An Egyptian court official and chief of Pharaoh's bodyguard. He was Joseph's master for a time and, it appears, was a man of wealth. GE 37. 36. 39. For Potiphar purchased Joseph from the traveling Midianite merchants and, observing what a good servant Joseph was, eventually put him in charge of his whole house and field, which establishment Jehovah blessed on Joseph's account. GE 37. 36. 39. 1-6. Potiphar's wife was not as faithful to him as was his servant Joseph. She repeatedly endeavored to seduce Joseph and, one day when no other men were around, grabbed hold of him, but Joseph still refused and ran out. When Potiphar came home, he heard only his wife's frustrated barrage of false accusations. Potiphar angrily had Joseph thrown into prison. GE 39. 7-20. This prison seems to have been connected with Potiphar's house, or at least came under his jurisdiction as chief of the bodyguard. Thus, the record speaks of Pharaoh's Otextoi acute Muritra Longo, Potter 657 Nasser and Ephraim. GE 41. 45, 50. 46. 20 Potipharah was the priest.